triggering change, one heartbeat at a time. Battle for freedom. Welcome, everyone. Hello? Let's see.
It's fascinating. Have you seen it? LaserShopLive.com. It's the YouTube channel for Romika laser engraving and custom designs. We're excited to offer you a 24-hour live stream of our laser shop, along with various videos showcasing our laser work and completed projects. Our state-of-the-art equipment and skilled designers create intricate designs on a variety of materials. With our live stream, you can see firsthand how we create our one-of-a-kind products.
I stumbled upon LaserShopLive.com and was blown away by being able to actually watch them work on their projects. Their laser engraving live stream is fascinating to watch, and I lose all track of time.
Whether you're a business owner, creative professional, or just someone who appreciates unique and personalized items, LaserShopLive.com has something for everyone. And with our YouTube channel, LaserShopLive.com, you can watch our live stream and browse our videos anytime, anywhere. So why wait? Check out Laser Shop Live today and see what all the buzz is about. Visit LaserShopLive.com.
Yes, visit LaserShopLive.com right now. Let them know Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you. Let's see. I think we should be able to be good to go here. I'm just trying to make sure that there wasn't anything else that I was missing. And I believe we should be good to go. Let me do one more here.
Hello, I'm Dr. Lee with HorizontalHive.com, and I keep bees naturally. And everything starts by catching a local free swarm of honeybees. You put a small beehive like that on the tree in the springtime, and just as birds move into birdhouses, bees will move into a little hive like that. After that, you take the frames, put them in a bigger box, they expand, they collect honey from the flowers, and make good honey for you. And it can be as simple as that. No sugar feeding, no chemical treatments. I'm doing it for a living. And there are so many people who do the same thing. You can learn more in the book, Keeping Bees with a Smile. And it's exactly that, doing natural beekeeping and smiling at the same time.
Yes, natural beekeeping and smiling at the same time. Let people know about Horizontal Hive, some really great product and great stuff. If you want to interact, you can go to facebook.com/Battle for Freedom, leave a comment there. You can go to rumble.com/Battle for Freedom and leave a comment there as well, too. I'd really love to hear what you have to say. Over in the Facebook world, I see Lep has left a couple of comments. You can catch him actually this Sunday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Rumble. Look for a program called Ain't You a Peach? The program is going to be the history of timepieces. The history of timepieces. It's interesting that, this would be his topic, and then even what we're going to be covering today. And because of the fact that history is something that we usually get distorted because of the fact we normally put our spin and how we think everything should go, or what are the key things that we should focus on when we're looking at history, especially now that I'm going to be going into the book of Genesis. But 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this Sunday, go to Ain't You a Peach on rumble.com and let him know Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you. You can leave him a comment right there in the program, and he'll be happy to hear from you as he goes through this. So today we're talking about, I think I'm going to do one more. Before I do this.
Hey, my name's Trip, and I want to introduce you to Sun Oven. This is our all-American Sun Oven. We've been making these for the last 35 years. We're in 126 different countries all over the world. And basically, we call this a solar crock pot. And it's used to be able to just put your food in there and slow cook it with the power of the sun. You can never burn, scorch, or dry anything out inside the Sun Oven. Once you put it in, the sun reflects off of these reflectors in through the glass into the inner chamber, and it reaches temperatures of between 300 and 350 degrees. Really, the design is very simple. It's like the greenhouse effect. If you've got in your car during the summer and it's really, really hot, that's what's happening inside the Sun Oven. Anything you cook in your regular oven, you can cook inside the Sun Oven. You can use any of your existing pots and pans. If they'll fit in here, you can cook with them in here, just like you do in your regular oven. It's designed for you to be able to cook your meal out with the power of the sun. And literally, the longer you keep stuff in here, the more juicy and tender it is. So that's a quick introduction to the Sun Oven. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Look into the Son Oven and let them know. Let Trip know Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you anytime. Lep. I really appreciate you. Shout out to John Cladd over there in the Rumble verse as well too. Let's have some fun here. So it's something I was kind of nervous on doing up until yesterday when I was just reviewing again the Book of Exodus, and the Lord was just showing me some things that I had just never seen before. That's the reason why we're going to stay focused with my image, no live camera today, because this is really the focus here. I want to go back to the cover page. The names from the beginning, more than redemption. A few years back, you entertained me going over a year, and I remember a church I attended, one of my buddies, they played my videos as I was using Bruce Wilkinson's Talk Through the Bible, where every book had a breakdown of the history, author, keyword, everything like that. And I remember in the beginning that you had Genesis, it said beginnings was the keyword that was associated with it. And Exodus had the word redemption. And I thought it was very interesting as I was looking at this, because as I'm reading the Hebrew, as I'm reading the complete Jewish Bible, and, you know, there are the terms where, like last time I was saying Genesis, but I wasn't using Bereshit. I hope I'm pronouncing it the right way. And then now we're in Exodus. It's called Shim'on. And what's very interesting is that when you look at the key to this verse to drive home this whole idea of names from the beginning and more than just redemption, I want to look at the key verse for today, and that is, Yeshua said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever puts his trust in me will live, even if he dies. Yeshua is the resurrection and the life. And the reason why I went with this particular picture of the names of God on a tag in the background, and you actually have the baby picture in the center in the womb, is because of the fact that you see the umbilical cord is still attached to the child, because we understand that life is in the womb. Granted, you know, you have people who are warped in their understanding of saying, you know, using technical terms for a child in the womb, but we're not going to worry about that. Shout out to Larry, John again. Both of you, appreciate you over there in the Rumbleverse. But the idea is life, a child in the womb. We understand people who actually have a conscience and who are not basically controlled by Satan will recognize that there is a child in the womb, not a zygote, not all these other different terms that they use to try and ignore the life created there. And so what's really interesting of this is I want us to remember the life, the names from the beginning, more than redemption, because I want to go back to another verse. In the beginning of, let's see. Oh, here's another verse. There's another verse I wanted to share with you. Acts 4:12. There is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by whom we must be saved. And it's the idea that we look at the name of Yeshua, but this is more than just the name Yeshua. This is more than just redemption. It's bigger than this. I want us to look at Genesis. It says Bereshit, right? In the beginning. That's Genesis 1. But when you go to Exodus 1, it's very interesting. It says Shemot, names. Now, I don't believe it's the names that you're going to hear as we get into the opening chapters. I'm going to leave names here, just running up here, just for you to stay with it, because this is where I want to stay for now as I go through the particular verses on this. And it's just powerful the way that the Lord has worked this thing out. These are verse 1. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came into Egypt with Yaakov, each man with his household: Reuven, Shim'on, Levi, Yehuda, Yissakhar, Zebulun, Binyamin, Dan, Naftali, Gad, Asher. All told were 70 descendants of Yaakov. Yosef was already in Egypt. Now, it starts off with names, and everyone will maybe think about, yeah, well, this is Israel. This is all the different individuals. No. This is actually, they give you this is the history. As Lep is going to be talking about timepieces in history, they give you the history to understand who's in Egypt. Okay, a couple weeks ago, as I was fearing the idea of actually leaving the book of Genesis, we had the big, huge funeral procession. Everything is over, where we look at the life of Yosef and just the amazing things of Yaakov, and then the sons being afraid that their brother's going to rightfully kill them for everything that they did to him. But that's not what happened. And there was a blessing on Israel as long as they remained in the Lord. As long as they were following his rules, his commandments, doing what he has commanded them to do. Following the examples. We look at Genesis was about family. It was about family structure. It was about marriage structure. It was about leadership. It was about worship. It was about sacrifice. It was about the Sabbath. It was about circumcision. It was about obedience. Genesis was about obedience and family. And we see that the major failure in obedience was in Genesis chapter 3 when Bereshit number 3, when Adam and Eve decided to sin against God. And they weren't content. We talked a little bit about that on Friday last week about fighting the Jezebel spirit. We'll return to that this Friday because I didn't complete it. There's more to go over, and I want to spend a more in-depth time. But here, as we look at the names, check this out. Now, again, we know all the children who were in Israel. Many of you already know the story of what's happening here. But this is verse 6. Yosef died, as did all his brothers, and all that generation. The descendants of Israel were fruitful, increasing abundantly, multiplied, and grew very powerful. The land became filled with them. Now, this is very interesting. You go from mentioning the names, right? And then in the very next verse, you're like, they're gone. Yeah, these are all the kids of Israel. They're gone. I mean, that's a pretty short statement focusing on the names. Or maybe the goal wasn't really focusing on the names of the tribes of Israel and actually the source, power, and hope of Israel. Because this is the focus of Shemot, of Exodus. This is the most amazing thing here because of the fact that what this is in this beautiful kind of way, what names is doing is taking us right back to Bereshit in the beginning. See, we put the focus immediately on, we keep thinking about Moses, we keep thinking about the children of Israel and their plight and everything like that. No. The Lord is more than just redemption. I'm going to do some studies as we work our way into the plagues that are happening here. And I find it very interesting that there were 10 plagues. And I believe that if we look at each one of the plagues that were pushed in there, it was to show that the Lord was greater than all the creation that was worshipped by man. And probably some of the children of Israel if they were truly in rebellion and enjoying the delicacies of Egypt. But everything is back to in the beginning. The focus is back to the Lord. The focus is back into his holiness, his righteous standard, his beauty, his truth, his Torah. That everything begins with him. The Lord, Yeshua says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. I did not come to abolish the law. I did not come to abolish Torah, but to fulfill it. But for some strange reason, we keep going back to the God of I think that this passage means something. This passage no longer relevant. I. And we turn around and we make ourselves greater than God, diminishing the importance of his word. And I believe that this is what has happened even too as the next section where basically verses, let's see, verses 6 through 7, they all died. All the descendants, Joseph's descendants died. And now we're dealing with their descendants. Not just Joseph's descendants, but his relatives, him and his brothers, they passed away. And now we're dealing with the influx of the children of Israel. and Egypt is being overwhelmed. So as we sit here and we start looking at the names, sorry, let me go back on here. As we sit here looking at the names, let's continue on here. Verse 8. Now there arose a new king over Egypt. He knew nothing about Yosef, but he said to his people, look, the descendants of Israel have become a people too numerous and powerful for us. Come, let us use the wisdom in dealing with them. Otherwise, they will continue to multiply, and in the event of war, they might ally themselves with our enemies, fight against us, and leave the land altogether. Now, this is really, really, really what's beautiful about this particular passage as we look at this, right? They said, now there arose a new king over Egypt. He knew nothing about Yosef. He knew nothing about Yosef. Now, what's really interesting about this is when we get Yosef has gone so long that the God whom he served, who saved Egypt, is no longer known in Egypt. The name of Yahweh, the name of Adonai, the name of the Almighty is no longer known in Egypt because all they focused on was what Yosef did for them rather than the God who protected them. And this is an indictment on the children of Israel, on his descendants, on the descendants of the 12 sons of Yaakov, that they didn't keep up the law. The law. Oh my goodness, the New Yorker in me came out there for a second. But the idea that they didn't know the name of Adonai. They didn't know the name of the God who sent Yosef to let Egypt still be a kingdom, to survive a famine for several years. The great recessions, people will remember, maybe the people outside the land of Israel remember the name of Yosef, but they don't know Yosef and they don't know his God. So this is an indictment on the children. This is an indictment on the children about that they have disconnected themselves from the Lord. Yeah, they grew, they multiplied like roaches, but they didn't rise like kings and queens. They sat there, got fat off the land, and the name of Yahweh was nowhere to be known. So what was the response of the new king? Look, the descendants of Israel have become a people too numerous and powerful for us. Come, let us use wisdom in dealing with them. Otherwise, they will continue to multiply, and in the event of war, they might ally themselves with our enemies, fight against us, and leave the land altogether. So, one, they're worried about the internal threat about being attacked by Israel, but then they're also concerned. Then they're also concerned about the whole idea that if they leave, who's going to take care of our flocks? I mean, they were probably still doing really good for themselves because the Lord put them in the best land to actually have. They were shepherds. They basically knew how to tend the land and probably yield the greatest output whatsoever. That the Lord showed favor on them and still allowed the land to prosper in spite of their disobedience. Kind of like how he has in many ways allowed this country to prosper despite our disobedience and the pseudo faith that we call churchianity here. And that's interesting because of the fact that they see them as a resource. They see them as an asset to their success. And one, they see them as a liability and an asset. A liability in the sense that if we treat you horrible or if you get full of yourselves, you could turn around and say, well, we're like the other options that are being provided by the other company, the other business. And we'll take their package. We don't need severance from you. We're cool. We can leave. We're out of here. See, so what's so sad is they've only been seen as a resource and an asset that can help the kingdom either fail or succeed, but not who is the true source of their power, their strength, and their success. They don't know who that person is. So now they feel comfortable to go and make not just idle, physical threats to what's going to happen to them. And then we look at verse 11, Shimon 1:11. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor. And they built for Pharaoh the storage of cities storage cities of Pithom and Ramesses. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more they multiplied and expanded, until the Egyptians came to dread the people of Israel and worked them relentlessly, making their lives bitter with hard labor, digging, clay, making bricks, all kinds of field work. And in all this toil, they were shown no mercy. See, when we start experiencing drama, when we start experiencing pain, when we start experiencing frustrations, usually that is a warning that we're going in the wrong direction. It's very interesting. Yesterday I was moving some things around here yesterday, and I positioned myself in the wrong way. I was trying to move things around in my server cabinet and get things done, and all of a sudden I was standing in the wrong position, or I can't remember how exactly I positioned myself, but when I went to move, my knee popped out because of the fact that my leg was twisted, and it hurt, and I popped it back in, and I realized what I was doing was too much, and I was in an awkward position that yielded the very pain that I experienced. And about a half an hour later, it happened again. I had to go put a knee brace on. This has never happened before, but I guess this is the problem of old age. But because I was in an awkward position, I wasn't standing correctly, properly, I experienced pain. Similarly, when the Hebrew says the Lord disciplines those whom he loves. Discipline means that your behavior, you're operating outside the boundaries by which I had given you. So because I love you, I'm going to gently or maybe forcefully bring you back. Because the pain that you will endure because of your disobedience is a whole lot softer and sweeter than the pain you experience eternally separated from me. So the Lord was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to help you. I'm going to save you. I'm going to bring you out. But what happened? But that path comes with pain. Slave master. See, this is the part I don't understand. Is that where were the stories that talked about Abraham being called out of the land of the Chaldeans, and basically going into the promised land, going to the oaks of Mamre, where the Lord had called him to be? Where are the stories about how he had to let go of Lot and other family members so he could focus on the worship that the Lord had given him? Where is the stories about what that the slave of Abraham found Rivka, the wife of Yissakhar? Where are the stories? See, the thing about it is that back in verse 8, where it talks about the whole idea that a new king arose over Egypt and he knew nothing about Yosef. I think the people didn't even know anything about Yosef. I think they got a little bit too comfortable. They got fat and happy, like we do. Why do you think? Do you realize that obesity is not just a problem in America, but it's in the church as well? One of my old churches, after every service, almost once or twice a month, you had a big box of fried chicken and all kinds of unhealthy stuff that we were consuming that made us completely unhealthy. And I believe that sometimes there's nothing wrong with food. There's nothing wrong with eating. Everything is in moderation. Everything in moderation. But the name of the Lord has been forgotten, and that is the reason why there's pain. For those of us who say we call on the name of the Lord and that we're saved, when we experience pain, and here's a big indication too. If we're not experiencing pain, hello? If we're not experiencing pain because of trying to follow the Lord, guess what? We're not following the Lord. I was talking to Chief about this. That was about a month ago. We were talking about the whole idea how the church in America It's not getting pushback. It's not getting resistance. It's not getting fights and everything like that. There is no open attack against the church. Oh, yeah, they shut us down during COVID. They shut everybody down during COVID. So they weren't singling out just churches. They shut everybody down during COVID. But for some strange reason, the church isn't getting pushback. The church isn't getting resistance. Almost like the church is going along with the program. Almost like the church really isn't called by his name. There's a lot of churchianics running around, but not a lot of messianics running around. We got a lot of church activity. We got a lot of Martha, 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 but no Mary, Mary, Mary. Mary, Mary, why you bugging? But this is very, very interesting that we have all these churches, 45,000 different denominations. Thank you, Chief, for sharing that information with me, or Weiss. Sorry, Weiss. But this idea that there are 45,000 different denominations there are 45,000 different names of the Lord in their buildings around America. Different denominations, not churches. We're just talking about denominations, segments of what they believe is the truth of God's word, all ignoring Torah. That's the reason why the church is so empty. It's the reason why the church is so tasteless. How the Lord said that, when the salt loses its taste, is this nothing? Is this better than nothing just to be thrown down and trodden, just walked on? There's no use for salt anymore if it's lost its taste. And why do you think that it's easier for people to walk? Why do you think it's easy for the youth to walk away from the church? Why do you think it's easier for the millennials to walk away from the church? Because it is not rooted in the name. Oh yeah, you could put Jesus Christ, blah 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 church. You can call yourselves the apostles, the Episcopalians, and the Wiscotalians, and the Pupinalians. But either way, if the cornerstone, if Yeshua, the chief cornerstone, is not the fundamental building block of that organization, of that body of alleged believers, then all you have is a sanctified club. That's all you have, because it's not under the name. You may be wearing the jersey like many of us who cheer on our teams, but you're not on the field. You're not playing. The coach don't know you. The teammates don't know you. Not even the custodians in the stadium know you. You're just another individual walking around wearing a jersey, and that's all it is. But you don't know the name, and you're going to hear the fateful words, "Depart from me, you workers of iniquity, you workers of lawlessness. I never knew you." John over in we're about to go to break, but this is a funny one from John over there in the Rumbleverse. They said they didn't shut down the residential trash services during COVID. As a matter of fact, my hours actually increased. Sorry about that, dude. But hopefully you got paid. We'll continue with the name when we come back from the break. Talk to you on the flip side. Psalm 1, verse 1. How blessed are those who reject the advice of the wicked, don't stand on the way of sinners, or sit where the scoffers sit. I love this because it's basically saying that the person does not want to associate with wickedness in any way, from hearing, standing near, associating, nor being comfortable enough to rest in his presence. Verse 2 says, their delight is in Adonai's Torah. On his Torah they meditate day and night. In other words, they love the teachings of God, and this is what they think about day and night. They are like trees planted by streams. They bear their fruit in season. Their leaves never wither. Everything they do succeeds. Verse 3 is basically hinting that there's life in them, and it's not murky, stagnant water that passes by them or fills them. It's flowing, life-giving
clean water. But verse 4 says, not so the wicked, who are like chaff driven by the wind. Chaff, it's a substitute, or it looks like, or an imitation of wheat that has no substance and has no value, and it's easily manipulated. For this reason, the wicked won't stand up to the judgment, nor will sinners at the gathering of the righteous. In other words, there is no hope for those who reject the teachings of Adonai, who reject his Torah. They will not be able to stand, even though they think that they're gods. The Lord of creation will humble them. Verse 6, for Adonai watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. In other words, if our goal is to reject Adonai, his teachings, his Torah, his rule, his order, that means that we will suffer the consequences of living in no order and complete chaos, facing his wrath for eternity. Why? Because we rejected his truth. Triggering change, one heartbeat at a time. Battle for freedom.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on Mojo Fiber Radio. Today, we're in the book of Shemot, Exodus, for those of you who don't know the name. This is such a weird journey as we talk about names from the beginning, more than redemption. So before the break, we were just basically talking about how this is the new story. Joseph, Yaakov, Yissakhar, and Abraham, the fathers, the patriarchs of the faith, are long gone. And now the children of Israel are in Egypt. And they've forgotten the Lord, their God, who saved them. Remember that they were also saved as well, that they were brought out of the famine and brought into the land of Egypt by their brother, whom they had forsaken. Not just forsaken, mistreated. And now, all these years later, actually, it was about 400 years had passed from the passing of Yosef to now where we are today. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that between Bereshit, Genesis, and Shemot, Exodus, it's a 400-year period. It's almost kind of like the 400-year gap between Malachi, for those who don't know, he's an Italian prophet, and Matthew. Between Malachi, the last book in the Tanakh, and basically the first book of the quote-unquote New Testament, 400-year period. Very, very interesting parallel. And so what happens is that means that in the 400 years, and sometimes less than that, it's quick to forget where we came from. It's quick because this is the funny thing I always think about even when you have blacks complaining in America, 400 years of slavery. There wasn't 400 years of slavery in this country. You're equating yourselves with the children of Israel. This is not Egypt. And if you really want to put that label on you, really read the passage through it. We'll talk about that soon. You just hang in there, folks. You just hang in there. Because we're going to have some real fun with this. Yeah, you keep that in your coffer because we'll be coming back to this. But let's get back into just again. The focus is not on redemption. The focus isn't even on the children of Israel that they mentioned in the beginning of the book of this chapter. The focus is on the names. The names. Not the names of the children. The names of Adonai. The names of God. This is the focus of Exodus. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let's continue on this. So we were over in 11. So let's go to Shemot 15. 1:15. Moreover, the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was called Shiphrah, and the other Puah. And he said, when you attend the Hebrew women and see them giving birth, he said, if it's a boy, kill him. But as if it's a girl, let her live. I'm going to put this image back up here. The image of the baby in the womb. Okay, I'm going to read that all over again. And I just want this to sink in. Moreover, the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives. Moreover, liberal progressives spoke to the workers of Planned Parenthood, one of whom was called Shifra and the other was called Puah. The other one was called Success and the other one was called Reproductive Rights. When you attend the Hebrew, I'm making this political. No, don't think I won't make this political. Because to snuff out life in the womb, it's straight on evil. It's straight on wicked. I'm not condemning those who did so in ignorance, but for those who use birth control as you use abortion as birth control, I'm praying that the Lord will have mercy on you the way he has had mercy on me. May he awaken your mind, may he awaken your spirit, may he awaken your soul, because that is life. But I find it very interesting as we look at this. People who want to control the masses are quick to keep the masses contained. People who want to control the masses will do whatever measures they need to keep them contained, whether they are medical provisions and solutions for safety or any other system. They will deploy any system that they can to limit our numbers, to limit the numbers of the people who are making them successful. This is modern day slavery millions of years ago, and it's still replicated even to this day. From the diets that we're given to the medications we're given to even the information we're given to keep people ignorant and keep them reduced in number. He says, if it's a boy, kill him, but if it's a girl, let her live. However, the midwives were God-fearing women, so they didn't do as the king of Egypt ordered, but let the boys live. See, this is. Are there particular parts? Is there a probability that there could be women who know Torah, who know the Lord? And again, I am appreciative of the people who try and stand out in front of these abortion centers, these killing centers. I'm appreciative of those of you who are out there trying to save life. I want you to understand something. If you don't know Torah, if you don't know the Lord through Torah and the boundaries that he establishes in our lives, your tasks, your efforts are noble, but they mean nothing if you don't know the one who eternally maintains your salvation, who has died for you. Because he will sit there and says, I don't care how many children you saved, I don't know you. I don't care how many ministries you served in. I don't care how many banquet weekends you've served in or you've attended or letters you've written. I don't care how many evangelism ministries you served in. I don't care how many choirs or songs you wrote for me. I don't care if you've taught Sunday school, children's church, you've preached sermons. I don't care. I don't care if you've done VBS. I don't care if you've done Awanas. I don't care if you've done prayer ministry, singles ministry, couples ministry, death ministry, morning ministry. I don't care if you've done shoe boxes for Christmas. I don't care, because I never knew you. Too many people are basically building up this resume to present to God when they basically stand before the white throne of judgment, thinking that they can bring their resume, they can bring a cover letter with them, that God will basically be like, come on in, because dang, that and you use a monotype font on there, a monospace font on that resume? That's looking really good. It's all nice and neat. Or did you put like some kind of perfume like Reese Witherspoon did in Legally Blonde? Either way, I think we're going to be bringing a whole bunch of cool cover letters and resumes to heaven, and it's going to go into the circular pile. It's going to go into the ash heap with us because we forgot the name, or we didn't know the name. But there are God-fearing women who saved the children, so they didn't do as the king of Egypt ordered, but let the boys live. A lot like abortion, sir, the abortion earth-saving culture that says we are overpopulating this world. A lot like the abortion earth-saving culture that says we are overpopulating this world. Verse 18. The king of Egypt summoned the midwives and demanded of them, "Why have you done this and let the boys live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "It's because the Hebrew women aren't like the Egyptian women. They go into labor and give birth before the midwives arrives." So they got to tell a little white lie. They're like, yeah, we're just going to misdirect it. And you know what? And you know what? Maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe, just again, I've got no proof for this, but this is pretty funny. What if they intentionally chose to take they heard that the Hebrew women were having children, and so they decide, okay, we're gonna help that family out. But you know what? I got to do laundry. I got to do some shopping. You know, my husband needs some help building the cabinet in the bedroom. So maybe we'll work on that first too. So maybe they took the long way to get to the birth, and by the time that the baby showed up, we couldn't kill the baby. We tried, but we just, yeah. Sorry, we couldn't do it. Again, we don't have the full story, but you know what? I think this is pretty amazing. Because guess what? They were God-fearing women, and the Lord never chastised them. Get this. Look, next verse. Verse 20. Therefore, God prospered the midwives, and the people continued to multiply and grow very powerful. So I don't know what they did, but they did. No. We know what they did. They did what was right. John, over in Rumble Verse, he says, babies just falling out of them Hebrew women. They're popping them out like party favors. Oh my goodness, this is too funny. I love this. Let's see. So as we sit here, we look at this. God prospered the midwives, and the people continue to multiply, and they grow very powerful. Indeed, because the midwives feared God, he made them founders of families. Ooh. Oh my God. You want to talk about names? Let's go back to this, because we're going to be editing this one early today. But did you just catch that? Okay. Therefore, God prospered the midwives, and the people continued to multiply and grow very powerful. Indeed, because the midwives feared God, he made them founders of families. Okay. The second part of this chapter, or the second statement that we focus, group of verses, the first part talks about the names of the sons of Israel, right? And then the next section, they died. We don't have their names anymore. We're not focusing on them anymore. No one has a name. There are only two names that have come out. Well, technically three. The name of Israel, the name of God, and the king of Egypt, whose name has not been given. We just know his title. We don't know his name. But he gave the midwives names because they were founders of families. They feared God and preserved life. They were obedient to God. Let's go back to this. 1 Samuel 15:22. I desire obedience over sacrifice. I desire obedience over works. I desire obedience. Fear me, revere me, serve me, acknowledge me, live according to the standards because they recognize there were other midwives who probably had no problem snuffing out lives, right? We saw the story in Egypt. We saw the story around the time that Yeshua was born. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all of his people, every boy that is born, throw in the river, but let all the girls live. Get this. This is interesting. He turns around and says that the first time Pharaoh has been given his name in the whole chapter was the last verse, where he decided life. He decided death over life. When he raised himself up to be God. Interesting. He raises himself up to be God, to take out life, to not show respect for life. Whereas the simple midwives, no royalty. No, they do have royalty in obedience. They're daughters of God. They're daughters of the kings. Get this. Look, I get you. Because the midwives feared God, he made them founders of families. See, right now, the church is in disarray. Yes, Larry, better to follow God than man. That's exactly what the apostles said in the book of Acts. Better to follow God than to follow man. Oh, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. Only two. So you have to understand this. God is mentioned. Let's see. I gotta do this. I gotta do this. I want to see how many times he's mentioned. 1, 2, 3. 3 times God is mentioned in Shemot 1 before Pharaoh's name is mentioned. 3 times the Lord's name is mentioned before Pharaoh's name is mentioned. I think that the problem with churchianity today is we throw a name around that has no meaning and has no connection. And we see why the church is nothing but a joke to the world. There's no threat. There's no resistance. Only compliance. Think about this. There were churches who pushed people away because they refused to comply with societal demands. There were churches who isolated people, who maligned people who didn't want to follow the ways of the world. When we have churches that basically comply with societal standards over Torah, they're not. You know what they are? Synagogues of Satan. The modern day church is no better than the Sadducees and the Pharisees of old. Honestly, to tell you the truth, they're worse. Why? Because we have the rest of the story, or most of the rest of the story, and ignore the beginning of the story, and we should know better, but our lives do not reflect people who have the quote-unquote whole story. Why? Because we don't know the name. Because we don't know the names. And we're going to hear all the different names in this journey and Shim'on in the book of Exodus. Oh my goodness, the Lord is so good. The Lord is so good. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom and Mojo 5 Radio. Brad Staggs and Daily Mojo is up next, and I'm out.